Every spring, without an invitation or a reservation, a small army of geese checks into Eden Park. They stake out the lawns around Mirror Lake, paddle across Twin Lakes, and generally act like they own the place. In a sense, they do. Nobody built this park for them, but somewhere along the way, Eden Park became one of the most reliable goose hangouts in Cincinnati. And the story of how that happened runs straight through the park's own strange history. Eden Park didn't start as a park at all. In the mid-1800s, the land belonged to Nicholas Longworth, a Cincinnati winemaker whose vineyard ran for miles along the Ohio River. Longworth called it the Garden of Eden. When the city bought the property from him in 1869, it kept the name even after the vineyard disappeared. What the city actually wanted the land for was water. In the 1870s, Cincinnati built a 12-acre reservoir on the site. A pumping station, Eden Park Station No. 7, hauled water up from the Ohio River and fed it into the Eden Park standpipe. For decades, this stretch of hillside was less a public park and more a piece of civic plumbing, a place to store the city's drinking water and not a place to stroll. Visitors walking around Mirror Lake today are standing on top of a reservoir wall, not a landscape garden. That reservoir didn't just disappear once the city moved on from it. It became the raw material for one of the park's two signature lakes. Eden Park's best-known features are these two lakes, Mirror Lake and Twin Lakes. Neither one is actually a lake. Both are man-made, built decades apart for two completely different reasons. Mirror Lake sits directly on the old reservoir site. The reservoir was decommissioned in the 1960s. The city filled in part of the basin, turned the rest into a shallow reflecting pool, and finished the work in 1965. Mirror Lake isn't really a lake, it's a lid. Underneath sits a reservoir built to hold roughly 80 million gallons of water. It's still tied into the city's water system today. Twin Lakes, by contrast, started as a limestone quarry. Cincinnati mined this hillside for the same limestone that holds up half of the city's foundation and retaining walls. Once the quarry was played out, the site was left with no topsoil and barely any vegetation. Weeds even struggled to grow there. The city's first attempt to landscape it was a Japanese garden. What eventually stuck was two connected lakes joined by a footbridge. That layout is still visible today. So, we end up with one lake that used to hold the city's drinking water, and another that used to be a hole miners cut into the hillside. Two lakes sitting a few hundred feet apart with nothing in common except the water sitting on top of them now. One thing most people don't know about Mirror Lake too is that in the summer of 1998, art apprentices working with the Cincinnati Recreation Commission painted a fresco mural across the bottom of the Mirror Lake lakebed, a design built around fossils of sea life pulled from the Ohio River. It's only visible when the lake gets drained for maintenance, which means there's a mural hiding under Cincinnati's most popular reflecting pool that almost no one has ever laid eyes on. None of this explains why Geese have made this particular park their fixture. That comes down to the same landscape decisions that shaped the two lakes. Eden Park has, almost by accident, built the perfect checklist for a goose looking for a good life. Mowed lawns run right down to the water's edge at both lakes. Geese prefer walking instead of flying since flying leaves them exposed. So a lawn that runs straight into the water is close to ideal goose real estate. Add in a steady supply of food both from the grass itself and from visitors who show up specifically to feed the ducks, and Eden Park starts to look less like a park that happens to have geese and more like a park built unintentionally to keep them fed and comfortable. Then there's the safety angle. Urban parks like this one are largely free of predators that would normally keep a goose population in check out in the wild. No coyotes patrolling the lawn, no real threat from the air. Combine easy food, easy water access, and a low-risk environment and you've got something close to room service. The geese aren't just tolerating Eden Park, they are getting the 5-star treatment. None of this was planned. A reservoir built to secure Cincinnati's drinking water and a quarry stripped bare for its limestone ended up decades later forming the exact combination of open lawn and open water that a goose looks for. The city was solving problems that had nothing to do with wildlife, and the geese simply moved into what was left behind. That's the real story behind Eden Park's 5-star treatment. Not a plan, but a coincidence good enough that an entire species decided to stay and enjoy the place just as much as the people that walk by every single day.